I can clearly remember the first time that I passed a shuttle on a loom at art college, and I think in that moment I had a sense that weaving was always going to be part of my life. There was just something so satisfying about creating order from disorder and watching the pattern growing in front of my eyes. I was very fortunate to be tutored by master weaver Susan Foster whilst at art college, and the technical knowledge which she generously shared with me at that time has stood the test of time in my practice. It's quite obvious that colour plays a huge part in my work for a few reasons. I'm trying to remember when this began, but I do remember being shown a video of Cave Facet when I was in sixth form, and loved that opportunity to see into his studio and see how he surrounded himself with colour. And I really like the way he layered colour in his work, and I think this is quite clear from some of my early samples. Living in India really impacted my relationship with colour. I do joke that the colour got under my skin immediately, literally, because our arrival coincided with Holi Festival. For those that don't know, that's the Hindu festival celebrating colour. And we spent an afternoon getting pounded with paint, which took quite a few showers to get out of my skin. When we returned to the UK after living in India, I noticed colour differently and sought it out more. And luckily, where we live in Bristol, it's the neighbourhood where Upfest happens, which is the largest urban graffiti festival. So everywhere there is just an ever-changing source of inspiration. One of the projects that I've particularly enjoyed is the Wave collection, which I created with furniture designer John T. Rose. This project allowed me to explore the very intricate weaves, which I really love doing. So this is where I'll take the rug weaving techniques and scale it right down, working in mercerised cottons at a very painstakingly slow speed. What I find interesting in working at these different scales is that the fabrics that I wove for the chairs with John T were inspired by the rug weaving. And then in turn, working on this intricate scale, I then created a new collection of rugs. As I'm now gently branching out into small batch production, it's become more important than ever that everything that has my name on it is inspired by the pieces that I weave in the studio, and that will always be at the heart of my practice. The things that I create on the loom, and whether it's a rug or whether it's one of the more intricate textiles, only that's where the bigger ideas stem from. My most recent collection has evolved into the Bristol blanket, and it's still quite peculiar for me to think that this very joyful, uplifting textile came about in response to a global pandemic. During the first lockdown, I used to go on daily walks with my children and explore all sorts of parts of Bristol in our neighbourhood, and every day we would see the houses either from a distance or be walking along the streets, and they just became a very pleasant backdrop to our daily walks. And then over time this started to feed into my sketchbooks, and then that spilled out onto my loom, and I created some rugs using a technique called block weave with these fabulous blocks of colour which mirrored the houses that we've been walking around. The rugs that I initially wove for the Bristol blanket design are made using a rug weaving technique called 4-end block weave, which is really satisfying to weave. It's a very sensible way to make a rug because you get a beautiful, thick, durable floor covering, and it's also reversible. And this also lent itself to being used in the mill. The design could translate quite easily to be woven on an industrial loom. The design for the Bristol blanket, it was trying to reflect the shared experiences and the special connections that we'd had with our neighbours, or that we were having with our neighbours during the lockdown. So the decision to produce the blanket with Bristol Weaving Mill was pretty obviously the next step. It was the fact that one of the team lives around the corner from me and we could conduct our meetings in the street, socially distancing, instead of on Zoom. It was just small things like that made the whole experience so much more pleasant. We have missed those live interactions, and it was really nice to bring them into creating something which was designed to bring joy. I'm really pleased to see people's interest in weaving growing at the moment for a few reasons. I think the Annie Alber's exhibition at the Tate Modern was a turning point for people's perception of weaving as art. But also in the last 12 months, people are recognising the benefits of pursuing a craft interest for their mental health. And the more people have a go, I think the more people appreciate just what a specialist craft this is, which is great. Looking to the future, I'd really like to see my focus move more towards the artworks that I create, because quite frankly, whilst I'm making everything in my practice, it's really important that people value the stuff that I've made myself. This will enable me to go back to revisiting those very intricate textiles, which I really do love working on that scale, but I can't justify creating one-off pieces of textiles like that for furniture. It has to be an artwork when you're weaving 4 centimetres an hour. I remember a piece of advice my art teacher gave me when I was at school, and I was quite a sunny-natured child, and I think she knew it was important that I enjoy any work, any job I get. What's the saying? If you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think I found that in weaving. I know I found that in weaving, but the important part of that is that it comes through in the design. One of the rewarding parts of my job is the responses from the people who live with my work. I mean, there's surely nothing more lovely than hearing that something that you've designed and made brings somebody joy in their daily life. And ultimately, I'm very thankful to have a job that I love.